Peace be with you. Let us all go through a reading from the Bible and grow with its teachings. Please share to your friends and loved ones so that they will also be enlightened by the teachings of the Lord. Thank you, and may God bless us all. Mark chapter 12 verse 41 to 44. Jesus sat down across from the place where people put their temple offerings. He watched the crowd putting their money into the offering boxes. Many rich people threw large amounts into them. But a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins. They were worth only a few pennies. Jesus asked his disciples to come to him. He said, "What I'm about to tell you is true. That poor widow has put more into the offering box than all the others. They all gave a lot because they are rich. But she gave even though she is poor. She put in everything she had. That was all she had to live on." What can we take from this? This passage is about the widow's offering. Even though this passage of Scripture involves issues of monetary giving, we should make sure that we understand that there are many ways to give and be generous. Sure, giving money is good. But people can also be generous with their possessions, with their time, with their forgiveness, with the gospel, etc. Make sure to focus on the importance of sacrificial giving in all circumstances, not merely on the generous giving of money. Sacrificial giving is parting with what we'd rather keep. It's keeping the old and giving away the new, or giving away both. The giving of the first Christians was spontaneous, unguarded, and uncalculated. Sacrificial giving appears to be unreasonable. In reality, though, it's perfectly reasonable. It brings God glory, meets others' needs, and ensures us eternal rewards. And all the while God takes care of our immediate needs. Jesus didn't just happen to see this scene unfolding. He actually sat down to observe what was going on. He was interested enough in what people were doing with their money to watch them and then to use what he saw to teach his disciples, and us, about sacrificial giving. While he was in the temple, Jesus decided to watch people putting their gifts into the temple treasury. The Bible doesn't say if the Pharisees were among those making gifts, but it does say that many rich people were throwing money into the boxes. The religious leaders loved to hang out with rich people and had a lot in common with them. When some rich people in Bible times gave an offering to the poor, they wanted everyone to notice them. They would even have people blow trumpets so that people would stop and watch them make their offering. Here is what Jesus said about that. "When you give to needy people, do not announce it by having trumpets blown. Do not be like those who only pretend to be holy. They announce what they do in the synagogues and on the streets. They want to be honored by other people. What I'm about to tell you is true. They have received their complete reward." Matthew chapter 6 verse 2. Some people were impressed by all that trumpet blowing. But Jesus wasn't. Jesus didn't want his disciples to think that religious leaders were more important than others. And we shouldn't believe that certain people are better than others, either. No matter how nicely someone dresses, no matter how popular they are, no matter how perfect they seem, no one is better in God's eyes than anyone else. We should not be impressed by those who look and act important. Instead, we should notice those who have pure hearts and think of others as more important than themselves. The widow in this story was a person with a pure heart. Jesus wanted the disciples to follow her example, not the example set by the religious leaders and those who showed off when they gave. Verse 42 to 44 says, "A poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins. They were worth only a few pennies. Jesus asked his disciples to come to him. He said, 'What I'm about to tell you is true. That poor widow has put more into the offering box than all the others. They all gave a lot because they are rich. But she gave even though she is poor. She put in everything she had. That was all she had to live on. But how can this be? How can a penny be more than $100? How can the widow's gift be the one that Jesus finds the most beautiful? It's because the widow gave generously and with a pure heart. People might look at how much money rich people give. But God cares more about how we give than how much we give. God knows what we are thinking and feeling when we give. If we are giving to impress people, He knows it. If we are giving because we love God and love others, He knows that, too. 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 7 says, "Man looks at how someone appears on the outside. But I look at what is in the heart." So when the people were making their gifts in the temple that day, and Jesus was watching them, He saw more than the size of their gifts. He saw how generous and pure their hearts were, as they put their money in the box. Jesus knew that the woman was not just a poor widow. She was truly needy. Those 2 coins were all she had, and when she put them in the box, there was nothing left. The widow's offering demonstrated her deep love for God. And it showed that she trusted that God would provide food, clothing and everything else that she needed. Her gift was a beautiful sacrifice. No one in the temple noticed this poor woman. But Jesus saw her. And He used her as an example to teach His disciples about what it means to give sacrificially. A sacrificial gift is one that isn't easy to give. The widow's coins were a sacrifice because they were all she had. Jesus knew that we might be confused about sacrificial giving. That's why He gave us the example of the poor widow to follow. She had almost nothing to give, yet she gave everything she had. Religious leaders and rich people might be noticed by people. But the widow's sacrificial gift was the one that God noticed. What did Jesus want His disciples to take away from this? It seems that Jesus is saying for us to be like this widow, offering 100%. If that's what Jesus means, then the application is really simple. We should give away all our money. 100%. Every last drop. However, that doesn't seem to be what Jesus was getting at. Nowhere does Jesus explicitly condemn the rich people for putting in large amounts of money because they didn't give 100%. And nowhere does He specifically commend the widow for giving all she had. The contrast is clear. The rich gave out of their abundance. They gave much more in total, but it involved no sacrifice to them. They still had lots more left over. More for food. More for clothes. More for shelter. And good food, clothing and shelter at that. The widow gave all she had. The repetition makes the point clear. Everything she had. All she had to live on. Once she gave, she had nothing left for food, clothing or shelter. Even lousy food, clothing or shelter. Jesus teaches an important lesson here. It's not how much you give that matters. It's how much you keep that matters. How much you have left over after you give, that you keep for yourself. The widow gave more because she gave sacrificially. In fact, she gave everything. She held nothing back from God. The others did not give sacrificially. Jesus affirms the widow's giving not because it is generous, but because she does not give out of her abundance, rather out of her poverty she gives all she has to live on. The poor widow in the temple truly understood what Jesus was saying in Matthew chapter 6 verse 19 to 21. Do not put away riches for yourselves on earth. Moths and rust can destroy them. Thieves can break in and steal them. Instead, put away riches for yourselves in heaven. There, moths and rust do not destroy them. There, thieves do not break in and steal them. Your heart will be where your riches are. By giving with a generous and pure heart, The poor widow was storing away rewards that would last forever. Please help spread the word of the Lord by sharing this video. Again, thank you and may God bless us all always.